Hello everyone, it's Johnny Catrue, and today I listened to the new James Blake album, Friends That Break Your Heart. James Blake is an English producer, singer and songwriter, famous for his forward-thinking, dubstep-influenced but intricate productions, and for his soulful singing voice. I got into his stuff back in 2011 when he put out his self-titled debut. His production style felt very original at the time, and the singles Wilhelm Scream and Limit to Your Love, while they were both covers, I think they were probably the best examples of his abilities and his new style at the time. Production still holds up on this, doesn't it? 10 years ago, it still sounds pretty cutting edge. He's released a few albums and EPs since that time, and while I've enjoyed all of them more or less to some extent, I've always felt that each of them has fallen just short of excellence. Now in 2018, he put out a single called If the Car Beside You Moves Ahead, and when I heard that, I thought, yeah, this is the most interesting, boldest, most forward-thinking thing I've heard from him yet. This seems like the right direction for James Blake.
If the car beside you moves ahead.
So of course I was very excited for the album that followed in 2019, Assume Form. And while I did enjoy that album, that song, If the Car Beside You Moves Ahead, wasn't included on it. And in fact the album didn't follow up on that experimental style at all, heading in a more R&B and even modern trap influenced direction.
It didn't go downtown, Sunday, then moving uptown, Monday.
It yielded some pretty good results though on the whole. Now, just 2 years later, we have another new album from James Blake. And judging by the singles, he's doubling down on the R&B and soul elements of his music and focusing on his vocals more than ever before. So do me a favor and click the like button on this video and let's get into the album. The first song on the album was the third single he put out for it, Famous Last Words. I don't know if it's only because I've already heard the song as a single, but I feel like it starts off the album quite suddenly. It doesn't work that well as an introduction for me, it just kind of goes. But I do quite like this song.
I can't believe I'm still holding out.
It's quite a Tom York-esque production, I think, and James's singing style seems to reflect this. There are some stripped back moments that are more in line with the previous two singles, but I particularly like the middle part of this song for its more nocturnal mood.
You're the famous last words.
So yeah, I do enjoy this song, even if I think it's a slightly strange choice for an opening track. Track 2 is called Life Is Not the Same, and this was the second single. It bizarrely begins with that day trip producer tag. It felt pretty out of place. Anyway, I suppose it shows us that James is collaborating with others this time for some of the productions. Not sure if he's really done that before, you know. Anyway, I think this song carries some of the sound of Assume Form over to this album. You know, it has that modern trap sound in the production.
So if you loved me so much,
Where'd you go?
But his vocal style on this one seems to have this old-time soul feel to it, which seems to be his thing on this album. I enjoy the sound of the song generally, but at the same time I find the song slightly underwhelming. The chorus is well written, but it's a bit overbearing.
life is not the same if we're mine.
I preferred the first single, which of course we'll get to later, but this was a decent follow-up, and it works well enough as a second track on the album. The third song is the first one we haven't heard yet, and it's called Coming Back. And this song has a really nice feature from 𝐒𝐻𝐳.
Where my mind is right now. You say you
Her
love
voice sounds great on this kind of production, and it contrasts really well against James's voice. And this song has some pretty nice production tricks. Nothing startling or anything, but it works. I did enjoy this track on first listen, but I'm not sure how much it's really going to stick with me. It doesn't seem to have much of a strong hook, but yeah, not bad. Track 4 is called Funeral, and it's a short and simple ballad that James sings well.
Going, don't give up on me.
But I have to say, on the whole, I found this song to be pretty dull. Unfortunately, this won't be the last time I say this, but the composition on this just feels way too simple. I don't really feel it goes anywhere. James sings it really nicely, but it's not enough to lift it out of mediocrity for me.
I'll be the best I can be.
Track 5 is called Frozen, and this one has rap verses from j.i.d and a guy named 𝐒𝐢𝐬𝐳. This one's definitely one of the more interesting tracks. Some of the production is pretty strange. The rap verses are decent here. They at least bring some variety, which I think the album desperately needs.
Lift the pole north at your nose and open gifts. Check a nigga temperature froze. Blood trickling.
This song didn't blow me away or anything, but it's probably the most interesting track on the album so far. The next one, track 6, is called I'm So Blessed You're Mine. And the hook on this one actually reminds me of his early dubstep stuff. And you know, it reminds me of some of the tracks on his debut album, like I Never Learned to Share, that are based around a single vocal line with cool production ideas. It is pretty cool, but although I enjoy the production and the hook on this one, the actual song around it doesn't do too much for me. It just left me a bit unsatisfied, but at least it's got some interesting things going on. Track 7 is another short and sweet one called Foot Forward. I do enjoy this one quite a bit more than Funeral though. It's got more life to it thanks to a cool piano riff and some energetic vocals. The song does feel a bit slight thanks to its short length, but I enjoy it while it lasts. Track 8 is called Show Me, and I find the opening to be a bit bland, but it's nice enough. For me, this one is saved by its dramatic change halfway through. It's well written and passionately sung. That change really comes at the perfect time, gives the album some much needed power. I do wish it lasted a bit longer though. The song ends up ending quite nonchalantly. Next up is Say What You Will, which was the first single put out for the album. And this is a beautiful song. When I first heard this single, I was blown away by the beauty of James's vocal performance, and it still moves me to this day. I suppose I was hoping for a bit more of this kind of thing on the album, because while there has been more of a focus on his vocals, which I was expecting after hearing this track in particular, I don't think anything else we've heard on the album so far really comes close to this in that way, but at least it means when this song hits at this point in the album, it hits hard. Beautiful. Very impressive performance by James here, and a lovely melody as well. Track 10 is called Lost Angel Nights, and it begins with a pretty bold introduction. Unfortunately for me, the song just descends into mediocrity after that though. Again, James is singing really well here, but the composition is just so basic, I just can't feel anything from it. This is probably my least favorite song on the album. For me, it feels like filler, and it sums up all the low points that we've heard so far. Just feels humdrum, you know? Now, the next song is the title track, Friends That Break Your Heart. And this song feels like a breath of fresh air after the last track. It feels meaningful and passionately delivered.
Nobody's prepared. Nobody's prepared.
The production makes it feel like James Blake is singing right into your ear. It feels very intimate, and the lyrics are very sadly talking about feeling let down or betrayed by those closest to you.
In the end, it was friends.
I was quite moved by this one. It's still quite simple, but in this case, I think it's effective. The last song is called If I'm Insecure, and I think it's a pretty great last track. It's based around a church organ sound that gets quite manipulated as it goes on, but I think that sound reinforces some of the church music influence that's been showing up on the album here and there. I guess in a way it has an unexpected connection with the most recent stuff from Kanye West. I suspect James is a fan.
And if I'm insecure,
it works really well as a closer, and this is reinforced by some surprising arpeggiating synthesizers that come in towards the end. So the album goes out on a high note. It's pretty satisfying. Okay. One last bass drum for good luck. There is a lot of beauty on this album, and as I suspected from the singles, there is a stronger focus on James's voice on this one. The production takes a bit of a back seat for a lot of the time, which seems to be a conscious decision he made this time around. Unfortunately, I feel at least half the songs here aren't really strong enough to hold up to this approach. There were great moments, of course, some passages of soaring beauty here and there, but I think there are at least as many moments that I can only describe as boring. And in the parts where James did get out his bag of production tricks, you know, I feel like we've heard much more interesting ideas from him before. Although there were some really nice compositions, the singles, Foot Forward, and the title track, I was pretty let down by the blandness of some other tracks like Funeral and Lost Angel Nights. So yeah, pretty mixed bag for me this one. I really hope James Blake decides to take things in a more interesting direction next time round, but I suspect I won't be getting my wish of a whole album that takes after the spirit of If the Car Beside You Moves Ahead. Anyway, join me for some full album listening parties over on Twitch by following me over at twitch.tv/JohnnyCouture. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me with the link in the description to buy me a coffee. It really helps me to be able to keep making these videos, keep my channel going, so I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.